Oh, I got a special edition of Legal AF for everybody. We got a crossover episode I've been wanting to do, and so has Shan Wu for a long, long time, ever since he joined. We finally cleared our schedules and said, we got to do something together. And the thing that motivated both of us was this new manufactured lawsuit, obviously, from my opinion, obviously invited by the Trump administration and the Department of Justice, filed by the Proud Boys Enrique Tarrio, who, along with the rest of the leadership of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, were sentenced to more than 20 years were subject to a seditious conspiracy charge that could have got them up to 20 years. They got pretty close, some of them. And now they're suing for over $100 million, fresh on the heels of the settlement with Ashley Babbitt's family for $5 million. These are the these are the Roger Stone group of right-wing extremists who not only marched on the Capitol, but led the attack on Jan 6th. Some of the most heinous violence was perpetrated by the Proud Boys and by the Oath Keepers. And that was there for everyone to see in court, all the judges, all the juries, Judge Mehta, who presided over the case, the closed circuit cameras, the video, things we haven't even seen really in public. And now they have the brass ones to file this suit in the Middle District of Florida in Orlando and sue for $100 million of your and mine hard fought taxpayer dollars to pay them, raising issues that they already got rejected at the trial in their criminal trial. What is going on? And I can't think of anybody better to explain it to us than Shan. Shan, former prosecutor, former general counsel for the Attorney General, and an amazing contributor here on Legal AF. Why don't you pick it up? You did a nice piece on MSNBC that's running, and on your Substack about this very point. I said, I want to jump in and talk to you about it. But take it from there. What happened from your lens as a former prosecutor, and what are we watching? Is there a live case or controversy going on here, or is this a phony shell game perpetrated by the Trump administration?
Well, not to have any spoilers, but I do think it's a phony shell game, Michael. But from a prosecutor standpoint here, this is not the kind of case a prosecutor would normally be at all concerned about, either protecting on appeal, which is moot here, or that there'd be a civil suit later based on it, because not only do you have the usual protections, right? There's probable cause, grand jury indictment. They had a complete jury trial, cross-examination, and a jury came to the verdict of guilty and convicted them. So what's the weird thing that's happened here? It's the pardon, right? I mean, Trump has pardoned all of the January 6 people, and his kind of poster children for it are the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. And that's obviously encouraged them, along with the Ashley Babbitt case that you just mentioned. Again, Babbitt's case, from a prosecutorial standpoint, there was a lot of controversy about, should the officer fire the shot? Should he be charged or anything like that? And they did not one, but like 3 investigations there. The U.S. Capitol Police did one, DOJ Civil Rights did one, U.S. Attorney's Office did one too. They all cleared the officer. And so there wouldn't be any real issue there, because they found he was defending himself and his job, defending members of Congress. So from a prosecutor standpoint, these are totally rock solid criminal cases that would go no place if somebody A, was even trying to appeal them, but B, much less trying to file a civil suit for some sort of wrongful prosecution, or in Babbitt's case, they're trying to say it was a wrongful death situation. But what's happened is Trump's, not only his pardons, because we don't notice a lot of people get pardoned then trying to bring a civil suit, right? They're kind of just happy with their pardon and, we're out of here. It's really all the encouragement he's given to them besides the part, right? These statements of saying these are hostages, they're patriots, they have love. The DOJ immediately after the pardon said, hey, don't worry about that restitution that you have to make. We'll give you a refund on that. So that's all been a huge encouragement to them to file the civil suit. And I know, you as a civil litigator probably have some views, on the, kind of the strength of the case and what they would do. They're bringing it under the Bivens doctrine, as well as the Federal Tort Claims Act. And Bivens, I mean, most people know, is kind of dead, right? I mean, the Supreme Court just keeps on saying you can't extend it, can't extend it. In my MSNBC piece, we point out there have been hundreds of dismissals of Bivens type actions
Why don't you
based on.
explain what a Bivens action is, named
Yeah,
after a case, named after a guy named Bivens?
right.
But what is a Bivens action? I agree with you that it's effectively dead, and the Supreme Court has said it even recently that you can't sue the government under this doctrine. Why don't you tell our group what
Yeah.
that means, though?
Yeah, the original Bivens case was for a bad search and seizure, wrongful, no probable cause, bad warrant to have gone into this person's house and done the search and seizure. So it's really been limited traditionally to bringing a civil suit for a Fourth Amendment violation, which is important because obviously lawyers, being what they will do, have tried to extend that beyond the Fourth. And this was back in, I think, 71 was Bivens. And since then, the court just over decades keeps saying no, 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 and keeps whittling it back. So today, most practitioners feel that it's very, very difficult to bring the Bivens action because the courts generally just tend to kick it out. And the requirements, even under the Fourth Amendment, are pretty steep. I mean, you have to show the sort of intent to have done this. It can't just be, an accidental mistake. There's kind of like the malice sort of requirement that gets read into it. So that's why most people say that it's a dead doctrine. And again, normally, I think, from a civil litigation standpoint, you'd say, wow, that's a pretty weak basis to bring that upon. So I think that's kind of the state of playing Bivens is kind of a dying doctrine. The Supreme Court hasn't actually overruled it yet, but probabilists are happy to go with it.
Let's put it in. Let's put this case in context and why I have a working theory that this was I believe we'll find out later, hopefully, that there was a conversation between the lawyers for Enrique Tarrio, although one of them, Sol Invictus, whatever his name is, appears to be a felon who was convicted in January related to the Charlottesville hate march, right? And won't be able to be that lawyer, I don't think, much longer. But I doubt that Enrique Tarrio, who ended up back at Mar-a-Lago at a dinner after he was released, just filed this with Roger Stone as his political strategist without knowing that he'd have a pretty good shot at getting cash out of this Department of Justice and out of Donald Trump. Let's look at what we have. We have Pam Bondi, who just said yesterday that if anybody spits or does anything like that, they'll be prosecuted up to 20 years under the Hobbs Act. Okay. Right? Because, all right, so that's one. And two, they fired one of the major prosecutors who was just doing his own thing in the antitrust department. But one of the people that came up with the seditious conspiracy framework, she tracked him down after 200 days, found him toiling away at the antitrust division and fired him, and then looked the camera in the eye and said, that's what peaceful transition looks like. All right. So you have a presidency that has, through evil alchemy, converted what happened on January 6th from, which we all know what happened. And if you didn't, read the 700 pages of the Jan 6 committee and watch and any of the transcripts of any of the sentencing hearings, and you'll know exactly. I used to do sentencing hearings. That was my bread and butter on Legal AF. I used to do a hot take on every sentencing hearing because it was important to understand how bad these people were and what they did. Right? They're not just the Jan 6 choir, but this president just through a stroke of a pen, just not only cleared them, but elevated them, honored them. At the same time, they're not putting the plaque to honor the Met Police and the Capitol Police onto the halls of Congress like they have supposed to be doing in the last 3 years. So you have this going on, right? So nobody can convince me, maybe you, that they did not file this with a wink green light from the Department of Justice. And we have an adversarial proceeding. I'm sorry. Who's the opposing party here? How is this? Explain to me how this is a live case or controversy and not an advisory opinion. All right.
Well,
if the Department of Justice is inviting this case and then rolls over for it.
I mean, even without the wink and the nod, which may be hard to get evidence of ultimately because people will lie and deny that, they have the great precedent of the Ashley Babbitt case, right? I mean, ridiculous wrongful death case. I mean, tragedy that she was so misled and was killed in that situation. But as a wrongful death with the police acting improperly is not a leg to stand on. And yet, DOJ immediately rolls over and pays, I think it's $3 million, $5 million,
$5 million.
$5 million
Yeah.
to them. So anyone looking at that, any plaintiff's attorney is going to think, hey, you know, I mean, maybe something to it. We got 1,600 potential plaintiffs out there who are all pardoned. You know, maybe we can do something here. Maybe we'll do a class action. I don't know.
Well,
but
reparations.
exactly.
The Trump
Right.
administration and MAGA is against reparations for African Americans
Right.
or people whose ancestors were horribly enslaved
Yeah.
in America. No, reparations, no. But I said this when they let them out. I said, wait for the bill for reparations.
Yeah, and Trump has talked about setting up a quote compensation fund for them, which is exactly what you're saying, which is reparations. And yeah, I mean that contrast between people who honestly, genuinely be harmed, decades, centuries of efforts to get reparations. I mean, look how long that the Tulsa race massacre, how long it took for Tulsa to do anything with that, or Japanese Americans, you know, after incarceration. But this is like, you know, immediately let's start, you know, paying these people back right away. The case and controversy is actually a fascinating question because I was watching one of the CNN commentators, somebody I like a lot, but he was a legal analyst, and he was saying, you know, it's very unlikely the Justice Department is going to settle here because settling, and this I disagree with, means that you're kind of admitting there's some liability, something went wrong. And so the department's not going to want to do that because it's still the Department of Justice, even though that was Biden and this is Trump. And, you know, with due respect, I think that's really wrong. First of all, I think people settle.
He's totally wrong.
Yeah, very specifically because they want to avoid the admission of liability. That's number one. But number two, this DOJ couldn't care less about that. I mean, they're already on record agreeing that these folks are victims, they're hostages. They're not going to have any concern with having to take a position against these people because they don't want to. And so that goes to your point of the lack of a case and a controversy here. On paper, it looks like there's an adversarial position because these folks, the plaintiffs, Proud Boys, are suing DOJ, which is the same entity that convicted them. But in reality, based on what DOJ is saying, like, how could they possibly take a stand against them? I don't even understand how that works. Like, you call the current AG or you call Merrick Garland, the former AG. That actually I'd be interested in seeing happen to testify about, you know, why this was okay. And, you know, normally DOJ would never let anyone talk about it. It's all like, you know, the sort of law enforcement privilege stuff wrapped in a black box. But here, what else are they going to do? They'd have to do that. It's really so difficult for them to actually try a case if they wanted to defend it, that they are bound to settle just from a point of view of logistics.
Right. And so let's add one more layer onto this. We just had a case where a judge, Judge Ho in New York, took a look at the request by the new Department of Justice to dismiss the indictment of Eric Adams, the mayor. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't see an adversarial party here. I feel I need a special counsel to advise me, to give me an amicus. And he hired Clement, the former Solicitor General under one of the Bushes, you know, right-wing guy. But listen, he's stepped out for the rule of law lately, and he seems to be taking some interesting positions to defend the rule of law. But that's what they did. That's what he did. What about the judge here in the Middle District of Orlando, the Middle District of Florida in Orlando? If they get the suspicion it starts to reek to high heaven that this is a setup, what's a federal judge to do?
Yeah, that's a fascinating, as usual, unprecedented scenario, right? So in the Eric Adams case, that was the criminal proceeding versus civil, and the prosecution was saying we want to dismiss it. And I think Judge Ho, with great insight, pointed out what you just said, which is, where's the adversary? I need somebody to make the argument for the government, so the government won't make the argument.
Right.
So here it's kind of interesting. The federal judge in this case, they could appoint someone like that, like a special master kind of, to take a look at the scenario, to kind of make sure the court has the benefit of some briefings on whether it's a real case and controversy or not. But here's, I think, the problem with that, Michael. Who's going to raise the fact that there's no case of controversy besides the judge themselves?
We need an intervener.
We need an intervener, exactly. And there's a real tricky question there. I mean, from a common sense standpoint, I think taxpayers have a standing issue here. I mean, you know, it's our money that's being given out here, and it's almost just creating this sort of like assembly line of giving money to Trump's friends. again. But they're legally, I think it's a tricky issue. I don't know, if you have some insights on that, but
Mm.
I'm not sure who gets to actually bring that point to the judge.
I'd have to think who's right, who has standing to
Right.
intervene in the case to advocate for that. Look, I know the ACLU has brought other parties in when they thought it, when there was an attack uh, on some of the guidelines that now Trump has reversed, pardon me, related to emergency care and abortions.
Right.
They had filed, the right wingers and the Christian right had filed a case down in, I think, Tennessee or North Carolina. And as soon as they got their way with Trump, they dismissed the case as soon as the ACLU intervened in the case. So we're going to have to scramble and I don't know if it's one of the victims. I don't know if it's one of the police officers who died or was injured, if it's Harry Dunn, or if it's one of them who says, over, not only over my dead body, but the question is, what is, they're alleging that their civil rights were abused, both in search and seizure and in rulings that were made by the judge, which was all rejected by the trial judge at the time. It didn't go up on appeal because they got pardoned in the meantime. But yeah, you and I are going to have to cogitate and marinate a little bit about, because somebody's got to intervene.
Yeah.
Unless the judge, like in the criminal case, takes a look and says, I don't see adversary parties here, and I'm troubled by that. So on my own, with my inherent authority, I'm going to appoint I don't know if you want to call it a shadow prosecutor, a special master, an amicus, an amici, sorry, I'll get it right one day. And to give me, like Judge Ho in New York, to give me some sort of independent analysis of the situation. Can this suit proceed? And it used to be like, if it was a class action, a judge would have to ultimately approve. But if this is just like a few guys that are suing, I've settled dozens of cases, hundreds of cases, without having a court sign off on it.
Right. I think that's the difficulty, is like you're
Yeah.
saying, there are certain kinds of cases and some statutes, healthcare too. I mean, the court has more sometimes specific authority
Right.
to oversee that. Here, I think, the only route for the court to take is if they think there's some sort of fraud involved.
Fraud on the court. Right.
Fraud on the court. Sometimes they think maybe there's like fraud on one of the parties, which is not relevant here. And I think within that sort of fraud issue is the question of whether there's some sort of, it's a collusion kind of situation. Like you're saying, it's not a real case in controversy. It's just these people got together and ginned up a fake case to get money from it. It's like an insurance fraud, kind of idea. The aggrieved and the other party get together to do this. So they share in the insurance proceeds. That's kind of what it is. The insurance proceeds being the taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, that's why maybe it's a taxpayer standing case, and somebody coming in on that. But listen, I think this is a great first opportunity for you and I to get together and talk about things. We've been talking about it for a while. You do some amazing work here on Legal AF and in your own right under your Under a Color banner, which we're so proud to have you with us. And we've added. You were one of the first. I think you were the first or second in with me, having done work like I did on Midas Touch as well. And then, we've just added among our collaborators, but because of you, I'm going to compliment you, because of having somebody like you here with us, it helped attract, the Sidney Blumenthals and the Sean Walenses and the Court Accountability Actions. And now we've got Asha and Renato doing,
they're great.
It's complicated. And I've got two, I'm not ready to announce it yet, but I've got two, I don't want to use the wrong term. I don't know if they're Gen Z or or Alpha. I don't know. Well, they're one of them. Okay. One's an elected official. The other one is I can't announce it yet. One of them is a well-known person, a profile and courage person recently who stood up to big law. And they're joining together to do hot takes and podcasting starting right after the 4th of July. But, it's all a testament to just having the quality of somebody like you here. And will you do more with me? Will you do more with me?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And have you on Legal AF. Maybe we'll bring you on like midweek Legal AF one day, talk about something that you're interested in.
No, it's the right time for Legal AF. I mean, people are just so hungry to have a correct, different point of view on things rather than just all these little sound bites and distortions we're getting on mainstream media.
Absolutely. And I'm so honored to have you here, shoulder to shoulder in this thing that we've built. And this is going to be airing at or around the time of No King's Day,
Right.
resistance, defiance, without violence in the streets of 1,500 cities. So important that people have someplace, a safe space to come and talk about these issues and understand these issues at the molecular level, but in a way that's not patronizing to them. It doesn't talk down to them, but gives them knowledge and information so they can go out into the streets and they can have the debate around their kitchen table or around their social media platform, or not debate at all. I mean, some people just like, I just need the information for myself,
Right.
and then I'll do what I can and hopefully work behind the scenes on voter registration and anti-suppression laws and that kind of thing. But so honored to have you with us, Shan. Until our next time together, under color of law, look up Shan. Talk about your MSNBC and your Substack.
Yeah, we've got a MSNBC opinion piece. We'll put that up for you. And actually, just today, Friday 13th, lucky day, and premiering the Shan Wu Substack. So we'll put that link up for you too.
Yeah, we'll put it in notes here on this particular hot take hot take as well. So until our collective work, our individual work here on Legal AF, you got Shan Wu and Michael Popok signing off. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.